Are you sick and tired of lame-ass social media? Are you sick and tired of turning on the TV and being bored to tears? Well, never fear. Roundtable Philosophy is here to save the day, bringing you new and interesting podcasts each and every week. Let's get the party started. All right, so tonight we're going to talk about 10 Cerebral movies every college kid should see. Kind of to run down the list, we have Donnie Darko, Equilibrium, Fight Club, Full Metal Jacket, Memento, Pulp Fiction, Requiem for a Dream, Seven, The Human Centipede, and The Machinist.
I think I agree with your list, except for maybe The Machinist. All I remember is I was pretty bored through the whole thing.
Which one?
It was kind of a slow movie, I think partially because a lot of it he just keeps passing out asleep and then waking up again. Because it's not really a movie that just captivates you. But when you start watching it, it's like, why is this guy cleaning all the time? And why the hell is he so skinny? Christian Bale was that thin, and then he turned around and played Batman. So he went from extreme weight loss to extreme weight gain. And then this was kind of messing with my head. I was like, damn, that's scary, man. He's skeletal. Yeah, apparently, I guess any spoilers, he is really the person that he thinks that he is pursuing. I guess was my understanding of it, that he was seeing himself in a different light, but really he was the actual other or something like that.
Yeah, I'm impressed at how much weight he lost for the movie. Yeah, I really don't remember the plot.
Know that he can't sleep and he stays awake for days, and the moment that he dozes off, he immediately wakes up again, which I could kind of relate to because I was kind of going through a period in my life where I wasn't getting a lot of sleep, so I kind of felt like him, but I definitely didn't look like him. So, Jim, did you want to say something? I saw you unmute.
I remember about that movie. I've seen all the movies on the list that you emailed us. What I remember about that movie was that Christian Bale was really skinny. He suffered from manorexia, or I guess you could say Batmanorexia, since he played Batman afterwards. I remember sort of the plot-ish, where, like you said, he kept passing out. But odd to me how that one, of all the movies on the list, was the least memorable to me.
All I could think about was, like, it kept jumping across the movie. I didn't know exactly what it was talking about.
And kind of to springboard off of that, Memento, apparently the guy has, I think, what was called retrograde memory loss. So basically, whatever happened that day, once he went to sleep, he never remembered ever again. And he could only remember things up to a certain point. So throughout the movie, you progressively learn more and more and more. He's basically trying to find the guy that killed his wife. So, kind of to, again, spoiler alert, I think he ended up killing the guy that killed his wife, but he keeps thinking that this person is trying to help him, I guess, is possibly a suspect or something of that nature. It's really hard to follow if you're not paying attention, so it's definitely a movie that you have to not be distracted and do anything else with. And so Ryan in the chat said, Memento is 50 States with no comedy or an actual ending. That's not far from the truth, but I did like the elements of the movie where the guy had tattoos all over his body as kind of key things to jog his memory. And I don't know how that would work considering he had no real memory due to his accident. All right, Ryan.
I'll be honest, I haven't actually seen this movie, so my opinion of it will not actually matter that much to those who have watched it before. So yeah, tattoos on his body, because spending that much money, a tattoo stuff onto your body is going to solve all the world's problems for your memory loss. This guy never had any friends, apparently. If they did, or if he did, they probably would have given him giant mini sticky notepads. Just putting it out there.
Notes would have been that helpful, but I think it was to replace the sticky notes. Let's hear what Jason has to say.
Well, my main thing, though, is the fact that if that is the case, so there has to be an actual ending to this. Otherwise, you're going to go underneath the illusion that, he finds out who it is because he can never remember anything from the night before. Just to substantiate whatever theory he has or whatnot, though. But to me, that movie would be a movie that I would just instantly say, I'll never recommend the movie for anybody to watch, period. Just because that's a dick move to end the movie like that with no actual ending, and you're just kind of like, well, shit, where's the plot?
I want to say, I think the ending of the movie is actually at the beginning, if I remember it correctly. If I remember the format, it goes back and forth between black and white and color imagery. The black and white scenes are one coherent storyline, and the color scenes are a different coherent storyline, and they interweave with each other, but one's played forward and the other's played backwards.
I don't really remember any black and white scenes, and when you said that, it reminded me of Pi, because that movie was all in black and white. But it starts off with I think the guy's name is John G. He starts talking to him, and he's like, hey, man, I'm going to help you out. And he has like a picture and some others kind of help him remember. And I think whenever he sees the tattoos on his body, it unlocks something in his brain. But it's almost like 50 First Dates, is it like 5-second Tom? Hi, I'm Tom. Hi, I'm Tom. Hi, I'm Tom. So this guy is suffering from this thing. As long as he doesn't go to sleep, he'll be perfectly fine. He can keep running down the train of thought. But it's almost like a Tarantino film, right? So it starts at the end and then works its way to the beginning. But the only problem is in this version, it just keeps repeating the end over and over and over with a little bit added. So it can be frustrating for somebody that doesn't have attention span. And Jim says he won't get killed by Freddy Krueger. All right, so I would recommend that somebody at least watch it. Maybe they'll enjoy it. I don't think it was a bad movie. I was just really annoyed with the fact that I was progressively getting it, and towards the end, it was all coming together, and then it just ends. The girls never came. Speaking of things that never end, the human centipede. So I want to say I was living with my roommate in college at the time, my last year in school, and I can't remember if we watched it before he gave me the movie or after, but he went out to do some Christmas shopping or whatever. Adam says, no, feed her. And Jim says, I did it. Yeah. So I'm asleep downstairs because I was attempting to study, and clearly the pillow was greater than the book. But anyway, he came downstairs and he threw me the DVD and said, Merry Christmas, mofo. And I thought, what is this? And I looked at it and my face lit up, man. I was so happy. It was amazing. But I remember watching it and I just laughed because I thought it was so ridiculous. The concept was just absurd. And the scenes in the movie were just really ridiculous too. Like at one point they're all trying to climb up the stairs and the guy is, counting, I think in like Japanese or Chinese or some crap like that. And so he's like 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Of course, the ligaments in there. You are the middle piece. So yeah, just to recap, so there's 3 parts to the human centipede. You have the A piece, which nothing really happens to them other than the ligaments in their knees are cut so that they can't bend their legs and move. And then the middle person has their face sewn to the rear of the A piece. And then part C has their face sewn to the rear of the B piece. So essentially, whatever A eats, he will or she will defecate into the mouth of the B part. And then Adam says, I really hate the mental picture I'm getting right now. And then the B part will process what the A part defecated into its mouth, and then B will defecate. Now you're getting twice refined food. I don't know the nutritional content on that, but I'm fairly certain it can't be good. I do know that in the movie, the C part dies of sepsis or something like that, and then the A part slits its throat. So the B part is left there to die with its face attached to someone's ass and someone attached to its ass. And the glass can't be broken in the house, so they're literally just floor. And it's just kind of like one of those, no, kind of moments. Exponential defecation, Ryan says. And Jim says, but it did give me an excellent insult to call people for whom calling them a piece of shit just isn't strong enough. All right, Adam, you said you had something to go on this.
Can I just say I hate you for this movie? You talked me into watching this, and I have been scarred ever since. There have been days I have come home from work, driving home by myself, and I get this mental image of the guy, feed her, feed her. And all I can just imagine is this crap just going down her throat, and she's having to swallow it. It was like a train wreck. Crystal was with me when I started watching it, and I told her, I can't turn it off. It's like a train wreck. You just can't help but keep watching. And it just gets worse and worse and worse and worse. And she's just like, why on earth would you watch this? And I said it was because of you convincing me to watch it. And I have been scarred by that movie. But the funniest thing was, I heard later on when they made Human Centipede 2 was that supposedly the first one was was an action movie, and somebody watched it and decided to kidnap the actress that played part B and actually put her into the next Centipede.
Yeah, the new one that's going to come out where it takes place in a prison and there's like 200 or 300 people, maybe even 500 people, and they're out there in the prison yard on their hands and knees just crawling around like little filthy animals. I really want to go see it, but I don't know if I want to pay the money, so I may or wait until it comes on Netflix. All right, Jason, you said you had some thoughts on the movie?
I don't personally see how you could necessarily be scarred by the Human Centipede because I personally thought that hilarious. I think it was the sequel that could scar you because of how fucking terrible it was. And I also wanted to throw in Joey and I got such a kick out of the first movie that we occasionally do, we haven't done it in a while, but we occasionally do this little exchange of, I guess, random greetings to one another based on like references to things that we both like. And among them is a sequence of lines that are shouted by Dr. Heiter in The Human Centipede, and one after another it's "Feed her" and "I did it." So The Human Centipede does have a very special place in my heart as an unintentional comedy.
Lindsay, what do you think about this?
I think that the cake I made you looks like a walk in the park compared to what it could have been in the film. I remember when it came out and I thought for a second, maybe I should. It looks funny. I didn't go see it, but I did have, for my advanced film theory, was Japanese. So I've seen my fair share of content that I did not plan on seeing in my life, but the images are definitely with me to this day. So that's my fault. I haven't seen this particular film, but I have seen a lot of films that I know I've read that Human Centipede had homage paid to some of the films in the clips we watched in class. But in general, I do remember when it was reviewed by Entertainment Weekly, it got like a B+ or an A- or something, completely the opposite of how you thought it would have been rated. You would think that nobody would have liked it. But they did, as critics, realize that it was commentary and a comedy more than it was supposed to be an actual, like, make you jump out of your seat horror film.
Yeah, I'm really wishing that Phil Davis was here tonight because he was there when we watched it and he had no idea what he was walking into, which I feel like that's almost all of my friends. It's like, hey, you want to do something? Sure. And then you get into the situation, it's like, oh no, I wasn't expecting that. Hey, surprise.
I did not sign up for advanced film theory because of Japanese horror, but I definitely, eyes open, coming from that basis, I'm just curious, was it just like gore? Was there also like rape, violence / gore involved? Because I haven't seen, I don't know how, like if it was just point blank, this guy's crazy, only wants the Human Centipede, or was there more dimension to that? Because, from what I know from horror cinema, a lot of it is commentary on sexuality and the either abuse of that by the culture or the culture getting away from what is proved, thought to be classically correct in that culture. Like, for example, the Japanese aesthetic is nature, and a lot of their horror films are, the cause of, the effect is because they got away from trees, for goodness sakes. Like half the time there's no trees in this city and all this craziness is happening because of it. The samurai went off to war and they couldn't just be peaceful in nature, so they came back and they wanted to rape everybody and then because of that, then you have the femme fatale coming back to just slaughter anyone she can because she felt wrong. So I'm curious, is that in this film, or is it just like a gratuitous for the sake of being fun and gratuitous?
The doctor in the movie is definitely Asian of some sort, so he may be Korean, Japanese, Chinese, something like that. I can't really tell the difference, as bad as that sounds, but a medical horror movie, so it's supposed to be 100% medically accurate, and he has a little diagram that he draws out, which is the diagram you drew on my cake for my 30th birthday. And so basically he just really likes taking people and attaching them together. And at the beginning of the movie, it's in German. Jim can correct me if I mispronounce it, but I want to say it says Mein lieben Dreihund, which is like my sweet 3 dog. He first tried it on a dog, and I don't know how long the dog lived, but yeah, he was like, well, I perfected the animal, so now I'm going to move on to people. Some random guy and these 2 girls who were looking to go to a club and got lost and decided to come to his house after trekking through the woods in the rain and knocking on his door, and it looks creepy as hell. But yet they're like, oh, this is a good idea. Said no one ever.
Right.
And the doctor's German, by the way. The front piece
Right.
is the Asian guy.
He might have been German, but he looked Asian.
Jasian.
Actually a Dutch horror film, not a Japanese horror film. To me, this was just a terrible movie. Like, there was no social commentary at all that was easily detectable. I'm still convinced there's none in it. Its claims of being 100% medically accurate are about as claims as the Blair Witch Project being 100% real. I mean, it's just a shock value. It's just marketing. A lot of doctors have just said it was full crap. I don't know. It's like the whole thing was just like shock value. All that was there, and no real no real commentary. No takeaways other than, well, that's kind of screwed up. Wouldn't want to happen to me.
I do want to note that I do know it's not Japanese horror, just to defend myself. I'm just saying my knowledge and base of gory, gratuitous horror films comes from movies like Audition and Tokyo Gore Police. Like, that's all. I haven't seen this one. That's my knowledge base. The only thing I have to compare it to would be those films.
I guess it's worth seeing just for the social experience of seeing it, but I don't know. I'm okay without having ever seen it.
All I know is that Joey worships the movie, which means all things sensible have left the building, and that is all.
What's wrong with really liking the movie? Terminator 2 is one of my favorite movies. Why can't Human Centipede be one of my favorite movies?
Because just the title alone, Human Centipede. Well, there goes Blade Runner and Star Wars from contention.
No, Mel Gibson. Passion of the Christ? What? But anyway, all right, so moving along.
So you're saying we should have an Aramaic centipede?
Maybe. Can you crucify?
I'm just saying, dude, that'd be pretty biblical in all the wrong directions.
But anyway.
I like the South Park version of it better, really.
For the Human Centipede?
Yeah.
I believe in you! I caught a fish in asparagus! That's basically what happens.
Pretty much as well, but that's about it.
I can push his button and shit's in Kyle's mouth. Yeah! So let's go with 7. So has seen 7.
Me.
I have seen
I'm showing my hand.
And Brad pinned it with me, and he was very adamantly wondering what was in that. It never quite shows it, but it is implied that it has something to do with Brad Pitt's pregnant wife.
Ben Affleck's penis.
Beat me by 1 second.
Your daddy, but your dog beat me to it. What? Crickets.
And very creative.
I watched
Household.
But yeah, so basically, there's a guy that's killing people by the 7. Like, I believe one of them was this model that I want to say she had her face cut up, and there was a gun in one hand and a phone in the other that had been taped to her hand, and she either had to call for help or shoot herself or something like that, and she opted not to get help, so she just decided to shoot herself. So that was pretty messed up. I think it was a strap-on covered in razors, so that when the girl was penetrated, it would mutilate her. That was also kind of messed up. It was almost like a precursor to Saw, and I really want to put Saw on this list, but I want to save Saw for a completely different podcast because there are so many of them. And I actually spent one Halloween watching all of them sequentially back to back, and it made so much sense because we always would go watch it every Halloween, and having that much time pass, you can't really remember everything, but if you just watch them all back to back, yeah. So next movie, we're going to go with Requiem for a Dream. Has anybody seen Requiem for a Dream?
Every couple of years. Just leaves me in such a depressed state. Like, it just has a massive emotional impact. I just have to be in a super happy place to start it so that I can come out of it okay.
I have to second that opinion.
My wife to watch this movie since we first started dating. And I mean, how many years is that now? It was like 2007 or something, right? That's like 7 years, basically, 7-8 years. And I've yet to be able to get into a place where I'm ready to watch it and she's ready to watch it.
Kind of goes back and forth between everything. So you have this old lady that takes all these weight loss pills, or I guess that's what they're called, and she watches this TV show. And I don't know the actor's name, but it's the guy that's in Gilmore that's a douchebag. But
Christopher
anyway,
McDonald.
Yeah, douchebag. Anyway, so he hosts this TV show, and she keeps watching it, and she's like, I'm going to be on television. No, she's not. She's just losing her mind, 'cause I think she's ecstasy or something like that, and it's really supposed to be weight loss pills. But the whole movie is more or less about drugs and what people do for them. Jared Leto's in the movie. He ends up going to prison because of the drugs, and he blows out the vein in his arm, and they have to saw off his arm, which is pretty tragic. And at the end of the movie, they're all kind of curling up in a ball, and the very last person, I think, is Jared Leto's girlfriend. As she's holding the little bag of heroin, she's just curling up with it, and you just have this droning music in the background. But the whole movie is just really messed up to watch everybody just go from one extreme, and how they like lose their minds and their body parts and so on and so forth.
Yeah, Jennifer Connelly got really screwed over in that movie. I mean, kind of everyone got screwed over in that movie, but I feel bad for Jennifer Connelly in particular because her character ended up with Keith David's character, and Keith David's character was creepy as hell. Correctly, it was like the first time she met up with the guy, and I'm assuming that he was supposed to be like supplying her with more heroin or something like that, and in exchange, pretty much the first time they met, he basically like whipped his dick out and was like, alluding to exactly what she would have to do to get her next fix. And then there was that whole scene where he had arranged it and there was a crowd of people watching, I believe her and some other girl doing like sexual things and like paying money to see it. And I believe they were shouting like ass to ass or something. Like I
Yes,
think
ass to ass. They had a double-ended dildo that they made them each put in their butt and jiggle it around.
And that shit was like the most uncomfortable part of the movie. There were a lot of uncomfortable parts in that movie, but like that whole character arc with like Keith sinking that low for a fix was like the most disturbing thing to me, because it was so creepy, and it was like, I'm pretty sure that's a sex offense.
I find it hilarious that his character's name was Little John, and I was expecting him to yell, "What?" Ryan, give me a yeah.
Okay.
You do that so perfectly. I think we're got gassed.
Just the end of the intro music.
That's right. But yeah, it was a dark movie. I didn't find anything wrong with it. Again, maybe I messed up in the head and I've been exposed to too much, or I've just seen way too much stuff on the internet. But I thought it was a good movie overall, even though it did have some really dark parts. Definitely interesting to see those characters kind of get into a very depressing state. I do also think that, Jason, you say that you have to be in a happy place before you watch it. Like, I've never really watched a movie and I just walked away like, damn, that shit was depressing.
Yeah, this is one of the only two come to mind. This one and United States of Leland. But to me, that's a very much unmoved by high accolades for me. I'm an Aronofsky, and I just love his filming style and the music that he adds and everything. I don't know. I'm a definite fanboy for Requiem for a Dream. Everyone should watch it.
And speaking of, we have Donnie Darko, who all has seen this movie.
I have
seen this movie, and I will say it is incredibly awesome just to watch. Just one time through, get it out of your system, because there's just so many times, especially my favorite scene probably is literally at the dinner table.
You know, that also kind of reminds me of, was it American Beauty, when they're sitting at the dinner table and he asked her to pass the green beans? That was like a pretty memorable scene too. Dinner table scenes are always pretty epic. I don't know what's wrong with the guy, but apparently the movie's about time travel. Been told. I've had to watch it several times to kind of piece everything together, but there's a particular date and time on a golf course with this rabbit called Frank, or I guess named Frank rather, and he tells him, that essentially this thing is going to happen. Like, there's all this series of events that take place, and so I don't know if he's doing all this in his altered state. Halloween is whenever everything happens, and so more or less, plane loses an engine, and the engine travels through some kind of like tube of fate, if you will. Yes, red tube, now presenting time holes, brought to you by Brazzers, because one logo changes everything. All right, Ryan, give me a skeet again.
Oh, ski.
So there's a time hole, and the engine goes through it, and it lands on Donnie, and it kills him. And so at the beginning of the movie, I think something that event from taking place, and so it kind of self-corrects in the end, and he ends up dying. I definitely say check this movie out, and if you don't pay attention, just watch it again, because it is a rewatchable movie. There are a lot of movies I don't watch, but I've seen this one probably 4 or 5 times, and I haven't seen it in a long time, so I may go back and check it out. I think we're down to 2 movies, so we're down to one of my personal favorites. The movie's kind of broken up into 3 sections. So you have boot camp, and the series of events happen with this one particular soldier. He's not getting it. He eventually loses his mind at the end and ends up killing the drill instructor and himself. Of course, there are lots of memorable things that happen. I mean, they give him all kinds of opportunities to fix the problems, and he just doesn't do it. He has one guy that helps him out, but even that's not enough. So then you have the second third, which is they're in Vietnam, but there's some memorable parts with the prostitutes. They're like, shucky, I love you a long time. I love you wrong time, $5. Eventually, they end up in a combat zone where there's a sniper and they're kind of pinned down and they have to fight it out. And eventually, the last third of the movie is that mixed in with them trying to escape. And when they finally do, I think they're all just kind of messed up, essentially marching back, singing the Mickey Mouse song, MICKEYMOUSE, Mickey Mouse, chanting it together. I never really realized it was broken up into parts because I didn't really see it that way. The best part is probably the first 20, 30 minutes. And Stanley Kubrick does an excellent job with the movie. I was going to put A Clockwork Orange on this list, but I save it for another time. That's another one of Jim and my favorites.
It is a little awkward because it feels like three separate movies kind of strung together, but they're all kind of pulled together. It's like three acts, right? So, but they're all pulled together by just watching the transformation of the main character from just everything he goes through. From entering into the Marines to basically, I can't remember exactly where it ends, but going through Vietnam, being with the soldiers, being was he a courier is what he became?
Are you talking about Private Joker?
Yeah, Joker.
Journalists never saw it as an evolution of his character.
Watching this person live through all of this and experience Vietnam, go from the person who enlists into the Marines to being the guy that, the peace symbol on his helmet at the end and, contacting me and everything else.
Right, because, his point of view was, I'm just going to do the reverse of what you say. So he's like, do you believe in the Virgin Mary? He's like, are you some kind of heathen? And then he punches him in the stomach. And he's like, why don't you believe in the Virgin Mary? And he's like, because I believe that, if I say the opposite, it won't like that. And he's like, all right, Private Snowball demoted. Private Joker will now be the one who leads you. And I really hate Private Snowball. I wish that they had just not even filmed him. Like, his voice was just annoying, and he just, I don't know. But he did really try and help Private Pile. He went out of his way, and unfortunately, Private Pile just lost it in the end.
I mean, there was commentary in that about boot camp is designed to break you down entirely as a person and then build you back up. There's a very high rate of casualty in reality since that came out. That first third of the movie with Gunny is just amazing. Like, it's just craziest series of off-the-cuff insults, all of which he ad-libbed, by the way.
I mean, he did an excellent job. He was spot on. Well, you have to think nowadays they can't do that. I don't know if that's good or bad because I feel like it makes people soft. There's nothing wrong with a little manhandling. Experience far worse in war. Getting cussed out by your drill instructor is the least of your worries. If anything, that's foreplay for the main event.
They do it, but it has certain boundaries now. So they're trying not to trigger suicides. I think they're trying to be a little more sensitive to sexuality and gender issues, and trying to not trigger any type of psychotic episode by really understanding the people that are in charge of. But in general, they still, I mean, all of the uniformly kind of their goal during boot camp is to break you the soldier.
Way too many people are actually invested, and the whole purpose of that boot camp is to strip you of all emotions. You're not to have any kind of feeling. You have to be a machine. You have every emotion, because if you're in battle, you can't be worrying about your dog or your wife or your kids. And if you're thinking about anything else and you're not on point, then everyone around you, possibly yourself, is subject to death. I mean, obviously you have gunfire, but if you're not at your prime, then you're just a target. It's like Equilibrium. Oh, we haven't covered that one, have we? Oh, crap, I forgot about that. I thought we had burned through the whole list, but Jim has been so kind as to remind us. So let's springboard off of Full Metal Jacket into Equilibrium, so if everybody's okay with that. Basically a dystopia. World War III has happened, and now everybody is in a state of not feeling. They're given this serum that they have to take every day, and it basically prevents you from feeling anything. So anything that causes feeling, such as artwork or books, things like that, things that may inspire emotions, is destroyed and considered illegal. Basically, everybody is just supposed to be a bunch of soulless machines, more or less, and they've created these grammaton clerics. And so you basically have different angles of which that you fire guns, because you always carry more than one gun. So with pistols, and there's a whole art to it, and they have kind of like a dojo where they teach everybody. And so Christian Bale plays in the movie, and his wife apparently didn't take her serum, so then she started feeling, and they found out, and they killed her. So I think that didn't sit well with him, but he's taking his drugs like he's supposed to. But at some point, he stops taking them, and he remembers how it feels. And who is Ned Stark's character? What's his name?
Sean Bean.
Sean Bean. Yeah, he played the partner of Christian Bale that basically he started by all emotional, and then when Christian Bale got emotional, he basically did pretty much the same things that Sean Bean's character did, which was, another example of the film's awesome subtlety. I just watched this movie today because it was the only one, so I looked it up on Netflix. The movie itself seemed like, as I described it, the bastard child of George Orwell's 1984 and The Matrix. but it was also one of the most pretentious action movies I've ever seen because it was trying so hard to be all poetic and symbolic, and everything was supposed to be super significant.
Do you find like Jim described the movie itself as trying to be poetic? I find it ironic because it's a movie about being completely unfeeling and robotic, which there is really nothing poetic about that. So,
but they're supposed to be the bad guys. The movie is supposed to be about accepting emotion and about being emotional and how basically emotion and more or less the power of love can conquer this cold, emotionless, totalitarian regime. Like if you look at that movie, emotionless side of it is the bad guys. It's the regime that needs to be resisted.
Sort of. There's a lot of ways of interpreting it. And I thought it was amusing that Joey actually described it as dystopian, because it's technically utopia when it starts.
Jim, as I said, pretty much regarding the entire supposed to be feeling or whatnot, though, was have a heart.
I actually always took it as a father, like the guy who was in charge of everything. I always thought that he implied that he didn't take the drug, therefore he had to feel emotion too.
That is what was really messed up. The simple fact that how did the people know to stop taking the drug?
Yeah, and they kind of, which would mean that he was so good at finding people with emotions, the drug didn't work very well on him.
Be careful, Preston. You're treading on my dreams. On that note, Adam said he had something to say.
The fact that it was similar to 1984, it's more. I would think it'd be more like the movie from The Giver. Remember, or the book The Giver, not the movie. That wasn't the movie Metropolis from like the 1960s. Wasn't it also similar to the Equilibrium? It's just without all the violence and the gun kata.
Now that I remember Metropolis, but I may be wrong. I actually watched that again last summer, I think, or summer before last.
Well, it's like for the regime not to be taking the drug, it's just an abuse of power. In every other movie, that's a regime that everybody wants to overthrow.
It's like I always saw this as, I mean, they basically created a perfect society just like in The Giver. I mean, there's no real violence to speak of. You know, that everyone that is a problem is someone that's not part of the system. You know, they're rebelling against it. And the majority of the people are actually, voluntarily working with the system because they believe in it. Because there's all these different viewpoints is one of the reasons I think it's a good college kid. So many ways of interpreting it.
I have, I think, 2 more movies. Let me go back and see what Jim had said. So Pulp Fiction, I watched it and I was like, why have I not seen this movie? You have people in a diner losing their mind, guns out and stuff, and then you have a scene that has Bruce Willis, and then you have Christopher Walken. I mean, there's a whole bunch of people in this movie and it just jumps around all over the place. And I still want to know what's in Marcellus Wallace's box. Some people say that it's his soul, but I don't know.
I hid that uncomfortable piece of metal up my ass for so many years because your father, he'd be damned if he would let the hands on it. I know all about hiding watches.
All the time when it's in your ass.
Say what again?
This is a tasty burger.
English, motherfucker! Do you speak it?
Do they speak English and what?
I dare you! I double dare you!
What?
Boom! Sorry.
Headshot.
Does Marcellus Wallace look like a bitch?
He look like a bitch.
I said, does he look like a bitch?
One thing I want to know is that orange glow.
Maybe it's of wallets that say bad motherfucker on them.
Maybe it's the explanation of how to use the 3 seashells from Demolition Man.
That's another one, but we'll have to put that one on a different list.
Oh, man. It's called a Royale with cheese.
But you combine that with just the crazy stories that are told, and then the fact that it's told out of order and overlapping, and it becomes a joy to watch.
Does anybody remember the part where Uma Thurman's talking about the movie that she had Fox Force 5, and she says fuck Force, but they make it sound like she says Fox Force, and I was like, no. That is not what you said, lady.
The path of the righteous man is beset on all sides by the iniquities of fish and the tyranny of evil men. Blessed is he who in the name of charity and goodwill shepherds the weak through the valley of darkness, for he is truly his brother's keeper and the finder of lost children. And I will strike down upon thee with great vengeance and furious anger those who would attempt to poison and destroy my brothers. And you will know thy name is the Lord when I lay my vengeance upon thee.
Hey, Lindsay, have you seen this movie?
I haven't seen it in years. I will say that I think we should do an entire show about Tarantino as an auteur and argue, is he just a good director or is he an auteur, if y'all do want to keep pursuing film.
So, the name of which we shall not speak. No. It's not Harry Potter. Now, there are some rules, but we're going to have to bend them a little bit because the rules of Fight Club are quite sacred.
No offense, pretty sure that it was out when it came on DVD. Just putting it out there.
The part of this movie that stood out the most, and I think it only applied because I had just broken up with my girlfriend of 3.5 years, and I was having a very difficult time. So Brad Pitt is in the kitchen with Edward Norton, and he keeps asking him this series of questions. And so finally, it's only until we've lost everything that we're free to do anything. That was the thing that set me free, per se, and I just turned the switch off and stopped being depressed and sad. The whole movie is awesome, and I definitely did not see the part where he realized, I guess, that the guy really wasn't there, that it was just him alone the entire time. You know, the whole process of being initiated in the Fight Club was pretty awesome. And the rules are pretty simple to follow as well for the most part.
Fight Club was one of those movies that, to me, provided not only the entertainment aspect of a movie, but also that kind of philosophy. And I think there was a lot of really cool points, that really cool scenes. Like, there's definitely that one scene, I guess it's a rich guy, and they got him like on the kitchen floor. They're like basically getting ready to take his balls, but they're like, you know, we are the people who connect your calls. We guard you while you sleep. Do not fuck with us. The cool thing about that is that a lot of times when people take it upon themselves to go after a larger group of people and sort of lump an entire group of people, whether it's an entire religion or whether it's atheists or whether it's gay people or whether it's whatever else, they fail to consider that in any group of people, sure, there's going to be assholes, but there's going to be people who are decent people in just about any other category. You know, you shouldn't be so quick to generalize. And I think that's something that's not necessarily stated in the movie. That's something that can be interpreted from that scene.
I never caught on that Brad Pitt's character was not there.
I mean, there's just so many ways you can interpret it, and you watch it just over and over and get some new version of it every time. I believe they said it was a coming-of-age film for people in their 30s. My favorite interpretation, though, and it's not one I see a lot, but it's that neither Tyler nor Marla are real. They're both aspects of the main character's loss of identity.
So that's our show. Hopefully you found us entertaining. If not, send us an email and let us know. Go to www.roundtablephilosophy.com/contact. Fill out the form and give us your feedback. If you'd like, you can follow us on our Facebook page. You can go to facebook.com/roundtablephilosophy. You can follow us on Twitter, twitter.com/RTPhilosophy. Other than that, just check out our site on a weekly basis for new and entertaining podcasts. Thanks so much.